one of the dynamics in the world today is really kind of the geopolitical situation
Right.
that we have. And it seems like, there's this idea of diversification. It's almost like you need a person who becomes a specialist and who can take a look at all the available suppliers, all of the available challenges, and depending on what happens where, from a geopolitical
Right.
perspective, you need to be extremely nimble compared to, the past.
Absolutely. And I think technology is helping a lot. There's a lot of really good and interesting technology, AI algorithms that can allow bigger corporations that have access to that kind of technology to make better decisions, especially those that have an international manufacturing footprint, if you will. But you're right. Now, on the other hand, I sometimes question about like experts because you really never know. I mean, the more I know, it feels like the less certain I am about what might happen next. And you see it in Brazil with the elections that just happened this weekend, and you see it in Asia, and you see it with the war in Ukraine that continues to be a very important thing in the world. And it feels like the media has just somewhat already passed by it. But again, war in Ukraine still affects a lot of people. It's very critical and key to our supply chains around the world. It impacts the natural gas, the microchips, the automotive industry, and a lot of different things, grains, etc., minerals. So no, I think you're right. As I think having an expert is helpful, but I think that you should also be careful about how much attention you're paying to those experts, because it feels like the world in the future is going to continue to be more variable and more dynamic. And so you have to have organizations that are nimble and ready to react to anything that might come around.
Yeah, for sure. A lot of people, coming out of the whole pandemic experience have said, you know what, we need to make more things ourselves in the United States. We need to find more U.S. suppliers. But the truth is that is a lot harder to do than one would think. We've really got out of the manufacturing business in a lot of ways for many, many, many decades, and you can't just fire it up over a 2 or 3 year period of time. How does somebody who wants to do business with the U.S. suppliers, how do they even go about finding them? It's almost like you've got to go create your own in some circumstances.
Right. I don't think that that's actually very easy, but I think those are the right questions to be asking. I think the U.S. is perfectly capable of manufacturing anything in the world. Now, the other component to that common is, well, at what cost? Now, how do you compete? So I think the answer is not making everything here. The answer is not sourcing everything. I think the answer usually is somewhere between the two opposing views of the world. So I think that it depends on a industry per industry basis, and even more on a per company basis. I feel like supply chains are the ones that are competing with each other. So it's just not my company competing against yours. Right now, we very clearly see that it's my supply chain is competing against your supply chain. And so you have to kind of broaden that view and make sure that you're taking into consideration not only your product, your suppliers, or your company, but also what all the supply chain conditions are to make sure that you're successful.
So as a manufacturer, I need to kind of know who my competitors are and where did they get their stuff. Is it the same as mine,
Right.
or is it different? And is theirs performing better or worse than mine? I call it an expert, but it's like you need to have someone who studies these things, right? And it's a part of their. And I know executives sometimes think of themselves as doing this, but there's almost more information that they can consume.
I agree.
To keep up on what's happening in the world, how's that impacting shipping and logistics in this country, that company, who are our suppliers and how are they being supplied, and because there are, in the midst of all these storms, there are opportunities.
Absolutely. I think that's where most of the opportunities arise, right? It's really when times are not as good as we would like them to be, when disruption comes in, when creativity makes a big difference, when good cultures can really change the world, and where companies that are really strong teams make a difference. So I completely agree with you. I think that you have to be very mindful and aware of what's the overall geopolitical aspects of the world is, and then either just have someone that's an expert and hire someone that basically is part of your market intelligence division, if you will, or a position like that. But then also you have to be a little bit more careful about who you partner with, and then you can get that extra knowledge about what's going on in the industry by having very, very good partners. And I'll speaking for my company, we have agents around the world, and we actually have been very careful in selecting those partners. And of course, now that we do have them and we have long-term relationships with them, it makes a big difference, because now I can very quickly call someone in Brazil and then just ask for their opinion on what's going on, and then they'll tell me, and they're also on top of what they need to do in their markets. And so I think, yes, hiring someone, being more aware, and partnering with better and better people, good companies, I think that's going to be key going forward.